All right, 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I don't know how many of you know this. I know that you know that before doing radio, I did a lot of shows at colleges. But I stumbled upon something that I want to share with you as to how I got the gigs. Because I didn't really use an agency. I just did it myself. This is back in the late 70s. This is how old I am, okay? So that's how you know, okay? But anyway, so I was sending out these little announcements. I would send cassettes and stuff, and I'd send them music, and I'd like to play music at your school. Nothing really. I get a few gigs here and there, but what really got me the gigs was when I started to do comedy. And I had this one line in there that I would bring to them, mindless good cheer. Mindless good cheer, those three words, mindless good cheer. And I am telling you, it struck a nerve. I didn't know that, because I wasn't really good at, like, political comedy. I was never really good at that. I could never do that kind of thing. I would just be goofy, stupid stuff, you know, not quite... Carrot Top, not quite like that, but probably close. In fact, I used to share the stage sometimes with the guy Gallagher, and he was doing mindless good cheer, if you remember.
That's right.
But I heard him recently. He's doing political stuff. I guess as we get older, political stuff creeps into our talking. But anyway, I wondered why it was so attractive to have mindless good cheer to the college program directors, the people who would hire me. Well, I think I have somebody on the phone who can explain it to me. Dr. Michael J. Bradley is a clinical psychologist. If you're looking at the streaming video, you see the cover of his book. It's called Crazy Stressed. He's going to talk about his book. He's a leading expert on adolescent behavior. He's certified by the American College of Professional Psychology in the treatment of substance abuse disorders. He's been featured on the big ones, Robin. He's been on The Today Show, which is my favorite morning show, by the way. He's been on NPR, Fox
Aside
News.
from ours.
I like ours, and I like the Today Show. Yeah. Good Morning America, the New York Times. He's on everything, and he's taking some time out of his day to be on our little show to talk about his book, Crazy Stressed: Saving Today's Overwhelmed Teens with Love, Laughter, and the Science of Resilience. Dr. Michael Bradley, good morning, sir. What an honor. Thank you for being on our show.
Oh, that's my honor, Larry. Thank you.
Yeah, I had this experience when I was a younger guy, and I was reading part of your book, and it said, I thought to myself, wow, that sort of explains why these kids were hiring me. The activities directors who hired me sometimes were the students themselves, just so you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that mindless good cheer, I love that. I wish I had that line before I finished the book. It's perfect because that's what the kids need to do to try to get out of the stress cycle they're in. We all do, actually. That's, the Three Stooges make us feel so good.
Right, yeah.
Why is that? It's just ridiculous. It takes us out of our own heads, and it's very therapeutic.
It is funny, isn't it? Oh, I didn't mean to make a pun there. But yeah, I do the same thing. I'll go on YouTube and look at dogs chasing things, and it just kind of calms me down or whatever. It does work. And I'm 61 years old. No, 62. I'm 62. Yeah. So I don't think the age matters, though. What do you think?
Actually, it's the older I get, the more important it becomes to me and my friends to be silly, because if you take a look at what's going on in the world, if you take the world and yourself too seriously, we do not do very well. It's a short, miserable life.
Yeah,
I think sometimes, though, parents are to blame for the stress that the children are feeling.
You've nailed that one on the head. We've in two ways. When we study parenting, we're seeing a polarization. We see more parents than ever before quitting on their kids, just not able or not interested in parenting at all. And then we have the parents that are over-involved in the kids, being drill sergeants with these teenagers, lumping stresses on them that would break Marines. When you look at it, it's ridiculous.
In the book, you're talking about how art and music specifically is angry, is almost endorsing violence in a way. Can you talk about that and the effect that's having on us as a culture and young people, maybe more specifically?
Yeah, it's what's happened is there's kind of been a race to the bottom, and this has to do with the electronics, where people are trying to be more and more outrageous, just to kind of get some attention, their 5 minutes of fame thing.
Yeah.
But it's really gone down the rabbit hole in this thing with violence, with kids live streaming terrible acts of violence and getting likes for these things, getting endorsed. And when we do the research on it, we are now finding two things. One, it does lead some kids to be more violent, to be watching this stuff on their games and their screens. But the biggest effect for most kids is it desensitizes them. They just don't react to the real thing the way kids used to in the past. They'll watch actual scenes of violence and not get neurologically aroused in the sense of, oh my God, I got to help or I got to get help.
Yeah.
They just become passive witnesses, and that concerns us a lot.
My gosh! And any ideas on what we can do about that? And I know there are people listening who are saying, "Wait a minute, my son watches that stuff all the time, and he's okay." But you use the word "some," and all we need is one to cause problems. So, is there anything we can do to fix that problem?
Yeah, it gets back to that, skilled parenting. By the way, parents often become despondent. They feel that they really can't do anything. And the other good news part of the research is parents hold the keys still. And in this particular instance, it's staying engaged with the kid. For example, when, I'm a veteran, and when my son wanted to do Call of Duty, and shoot people on screens, I said, well, now that you're old enough to do that, before we're going to let you play Call of Duty, we're going to watch a couple documentaries on real war. And he was stunned. And I said, son, if you want to play with this stuff, you need to know what it represents so you can make the distinction between fantasy and reality. Those sorts of interactions are critical to kids.
That is brilliant of you. Wow, we should all follow your lead on that one. That is a really brilliant idea.
I wish I could claim the origination of that, but that was actually handed, like everything else I know, was handed to me by other parents who said, they said, before you get to the fantasy, let's talk about the reality, and then if you still want to do the fantasy stuff, go ahead, but you know what it is this represents.
And 15 minutes of fame is so easy to get these days, because look at all the Facebook Live things that are going on that the adolescents themselves are doing to hurt people. And they say, oh, here I am, I'm the star of this video, and everybody can see me around the world.
Robin, the electronics, the screens have changed everything, and that's the part that as parents we really don't get. See, teenagers have always been crazy. I certainly was. You can share your stories if you want to. So we've always been kind of brain damaged. That's, nature's way. Our brains don't work well, particularly in early adolescence. What's changed is the world around our kids, and getting the crazy stuff to our kids in this incredibly efficient fashion with the electronics and the screens is changing everything. As psychologists, we had no idea what was happening. When we handed kids at ages 6, 7, and 8 unfettered access to the internet, we really had no idea. And we can't, get those horses back in the barn, and we're seeing profound impacts on the culture because of it. And that is one of them, this all about me culture. Michelle Borba just wrote a great book. You should talk to her, called Unselfie, which talks about this, where kids somehow are under the impression they are the center of the universe very often.
I think we did speak to her. That sounds so familiar, the Unselfie.
Oh, great. Okay.
Do you know, we spoke to another lady a week ago about the Women's March a few weeks ago regarding treating women better. And I asked her, were you trying to change any legislation in this country? And she said, no, I'm just trying to change the way men treat women. And I said to her, that's a wonderful thing. But I think many men already believe what you're saying because they teach their sons to do that. So it's a kind of an irony, isn't it, that we have pornography, I guess. I'm wondering if pornography does to men, because men are probably the main watchers of it, what Full Metal, what was the game?
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, like the video games. I'm wondering if they
Call of Duty.
I'm wondering if they pervert our minds sexually the same way the violent games pervert our minds in that regard.
Yes, absolutely. And again, pornography has always been around since the dawn of mankind. What's changed is the delivery mechanism. The electronics deliver this stuff in lethal doses. Time Magazine did a great piece on this back in the fall. Your listeners should check out if you have children. And it's really about the effects of pornography And there are groups, advocacy groups of young males banding together saying somebody has to do something because porn has ruined our lives. It's a great analogy that you use. The way Call of Duty makes warfare look glamorous, pornography, and by the way, it's not Playboy magazine or what most people think porn is or was. It's a glorification of violence. The most popular forms of porn are violent and degradation. They have very little to do with lovemaking or sex.
Right,
It's all about hurting and humiliating people.
Right.
In ways I can't even say on your show because kids might be listening.
Sure.
But bizarre stuff. And it twists these teenagers' brains in ways that they can't function normally. And these males are saying, I love my girlfriend, I love my wife to death, and I can't have sex with her. My brain is twisted up with this violent sort of thing that I learned as a teenager.
Yeah, they don't get the connection between sex and lovemaking, which is, and I think I was lucky enough to be born early enough that wasn't part of my experience, even though, as you mentioned, we were all exposed to Playboy, but and maybe that affected us in some way, but I know what you're saying. It's just, so the book is called Crazy Stressed, and it shows, the cover shows, and I'm looking at the cover, it's streaming right now as we talk. It shows like I'm guessing a third grader, like asleep on his book, working with his pencil still in his hand. So are we pushing workaholism onto our kids?
Yes, we are. And we're seeing the outcome with kids trying to treat their stress in ways that are killing them as well. We've never measured these levels of anxiety and depression in any other generation. Depending on whose research you trust, those diseases are up 400 to 500% over 50 years that we've been measuring this stuff with teens. And the killer statistic, horrible pun intended, is suicide. I remember as a teenager, you're roughly my age, I don't remember people talking about suicide, hanging out with the guys.
Yeah.
I remember Blue Oyster Cult song, Don't Fear the Reaper. I remember, the guys saying, what the heck's that song about? It was about suicide, of course, although the author denies that, but it's pretty clear. The fact is that suicide is up 400 to 500% as well over 50 years. Last year, every sixth teenager in an American high school walking down the hall was thinking about either killing themselves, having attempted to, or they had a serious plan to. One in six. It's an epidemic.
That is so
sad. And that tells us how much they are indeed suffering. That's where the picture on the book came from, just kids feeling overwhelmed.
And it's just not about them wanting to commit suicide by, with themselves. They want to take others with them. They bring guns, they bring knives and stuff to school, and they want to blast other people away and then kill themselves.
Well, it's that romanticization of the concept of death that's occurring too. Suicide is kind of a red badge of courage for some kids, and when one kid suicides, it is a contagious effect. Other kids around them become more suicidal as well, because kids see it as attractive. It's become pretty bizarre that teenagers would see not existing as preferable to existing. In our history, adolescence is just the ultimate enjoyment of life. That's where you get crazy and into everything and out all night and all like that. But these kids are becoming kind of combat veterans that are burnt out at ages 13, 14, and 15.
I love the subtitle of the book, Saving Today's Overwhelmed Teens with Love, Laughter, and the Science of Resilience. I'm going to talk about love just for a second. We have a program in our community. I don't know if it's everywhere or if it's just here, but it's for juvenile delinquents that haven't done something super bad. They haven't killed anybody and they haven't been in a bunch of armed robberies, but they've broken the law and they need to be incarcerated. And instead of putting them into a facility, they take them out to this camp. We have in our listening area a forest, the Ocala National Forest. And there's a camp out there, and it's run by these two, it's a couple, a man and a woman, and they have a ministry, so that's part of their thing too. But I went out there one time, And this is the punishment that these kids get. They're camping. They have to cut trees. They have to start fires. They have to work together. They have to canoe. They have to set up their tent. They have to keep their campsite clean. And I said, this is punishment? And the truth is that the love, I'm trying to get to that point of the subtitle here, the love that these two people show these kids, and the fact that they make them physically work together, it actually does some kind of rehabilitative thing. And you're a psychologist. Maybe you can explain that to me. I grasped it, and I believed it. It looked like they had success stories to tell us about, but it was amazing. And I don't know that I clearly understood it.
Well, the trick there is that a lot of these kids that get into that level of criminal behavior are alone. They are unconnected in the world. I work in the prisons, part of the work I do, and we do a thing called the hero exercise, where we try to get the kid to identify somebody they want to be like, somebody they admire and respect. The bulk of the kids I meet in prison have no one, no dad, no uncle, no older brother, zero. And we work really hard to try to help them find somebody they could admire and respect. They're kind of lost in space, unconnected. Everything is cynical. Everything is, he who dies with the most toys wins kind of behavior.
Yeah.
You get them in those camps, you strip them down, they learn to rely upon each other. And it's amazing the behaviors that come out where they feel connected. It's sort of the military experience. There's a bonding that goes on when you share misery, and everybody is the same. Everybody suffers the same bug bites and bad food and terrible weather. They bond and they connect, and that's magically therapeutic for these kids. It gives them hope of being connected to other people in the world. Connection is one of the critical components of resilience, which is the answer, by the way, to all this madness.
Wow. So I just want to ask something. Could we break that down to something less serious than breaking the law? Maybe a parent listening or reading your book could say, okay, my son is just not behaving. We need to go fishing. We need to go camping. Maybe the love of parent needs to be expressed more with doing stuff together.
Yes, sir. And the kids are going to roll their eyes and, really, Dad, camping, fishing? And you say, yeah, I know, it's dumb. Humor me. I'll pay you $50 to go camping next weekend. What do you say? I did this with my son one time when he was in his eye-rolling phase, because I was the dumbest thing since sliced white bread, and I bribed him to go get a cup of coffee with me, and he took my $5 bill and waved it like he had my battle flag to the rest of the family on the way out of the house, and 20 minutes later, he's chatting away, and he wouldn't talk to me for 2 days prior. So beg, borrow, or steal, whatever you can. Don't quit. Always be reaching out to your kids, saying, look, I love you.
Nice.
Got a hug for you. I know that's perverted. I know you don't do hugs anymore. I get that, son. But, hey, it's here for you, and I love to hang out with you. Be the good salesperson. You're always selling the connection. Even when the kid says, get away from me, you're stupid, say, all right, well, I'll check in again tomorrow. I love you. When the parent stops reaching out to the kid, when the parent becomes convinced that's what the kid really wants, is to be on their own and disconnected, the kids get sad. They tell me that as their shrink. And the parents are saying, wait a minute, he turned me down 50 times. And I say, yeah, it's not whether he hangs out, it's that he knows you keep attempting, that you're there. You're the lighthouse. You're not going away when he goes through these turbulent seas of adolescence. That is tremendously calming for your kid.
And then you have the parents that always instill good value in the children. They're always there for the children. They have a good family rapport. But then the children start growing up and they see things from the outside. They see other children who feel they have to have entitlements, so they don't have to work for something and get all that handed to them. And then they're growing up and going through high school, working really hard to get scholarships to go into colleges. And then you have the politicians on the news say, well, all college is going to be free now, so why do you have to work for it? So that's like a really bad message to the kids that have these high values and standards.
Yeah, that's a tough one for parents, but we also find out that the kids who have less actually have more. There's fascinating research about the kid that 16, compare these kids that at 16 get handed the keys to a brand new BMW versus a kid at 16 that buys a 20-year-old Subaru that he paid for. It's all banged up and rusted. Which kid is happier? The kid who bought his own Subaru, even though it got all these dings and dents. It's about teaching the kid that, gifting things doesn't make people feel better. Getting gifts, being entitled, actually weakens kids. So parents from an early age want to be preaching the message that, hey, the way the world works is you earn your way. And you never hand kids things gratuitously unless it's a necessity, because the kid will feel better if they did something. It did a load of wash, and then they get to go to the movie that night. Then it's their movie. They earned it, not just hand it to them, and then it's meaningless.
And that's not mean. That's not being mean as a parent.
And it's always expressed with love. When you're doing these things and the kid's yelling, well, Freddie gets the money without having to do anything, you say, you talk to Freddie about that one, but son, I love you. And I think you'll feel better if you earn your way in the world. I think you'll feel more resilient. When I'm not around anymore, you'll feel equipped to deal with the world. I'm older and wiser. I can see down the road. Sorry, the price of the movie is going to be doing the laundry. I love you, man. So you always bookend with love. Don't do what our parents often did, which is to use anger to parent. That's a disaster. You can be firm. You can still have the rules and the expectations, but you're always reminding them, I make you crazy because I love you. That's why I fight with you.
Explain the part of the subtitle, The Science of Resilience. What does that mean?
Well, instead of studying the kids who mess up, we started to study the kids who do well and say, how do they navigate this crazy culture? And we came up with this concept of resilience, and the book lays out these 7 concepts, 7 tenets of resilience, factors, if you will, that we now advocate parents to build these things in their kids, starting on the way home from the hospital after the delivery. It's a whole way of viewing parenting. And that idea of having them earn their way is one of those concepts to help kids build confidence. Back in the day, we used to say, tell your kids they're wonderful and they're the best kid on the team and all that stuff. That turned out to be nonsense, that unconditional praise, flattery. It was terrible. We crippled kids with that. Rather, have them do things that are a bit challenging, age appropriate, and then rush in and say, you did a heck of a job of the laundry. Well done. Something real that you can then praise about the kid builds the kid. And that's one basic concept of resilience.
Our listeners know this, but you don't know this, Doctor, that I very rarely say that a book I think is maybe one of the most important books we've ever talked about. Mm-hmm. I'll say it now and then. I think this fits into that category. This is a hugely important book. You've expressed to us, and I know because I get a sneak peek at the book, that at least it resonates with me. What do I know? I'm a radio guy, but I'm a parent, and I've been on the earth for a few years, so I really think this is an important book. It's called Crazy Stressed.
It is important.
I have one. I'd like to give it away. If I have somebody out there who would like to use this and maybe have a better relationship with the young people in their lives. Let me give it away, and then I'll ask the doctor to give us some information about buying the book. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Frank.
Hey, Frank. You've got the book.
I know somebody that needs that book very much, and thank the man for making it available to her.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Frankie. It'll be waiting for you here. Doctor, I really think this is an important one, I think the listeners got that too. Give us all a way to buy the book. Do you have a website?
I do. You can check out our website, not just for the book, but a bunch of parenting resources there. We try to connect parents with other parents dealing with this stuff, and that's helpful. The website is docmikebradley.com, DocMikebradley.com, and you can get the book there or Amazon, or please don't forget your local bookstores. Those guys need every bit of help they can get, and they should have it as well.
Very good. What a great interview. Dr. Michael Bradley, I really, truly think you've done something very important by putting this book together. Your expertise is brilliant. Everything you've said just resonates and makes so much sense. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Oh, thank you, guys. My pleasure. Take care.
All right, we'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The Taliban denies it's behind a suicide bombing which killed some 80 people in Kabul, Afghanistan, including a driver for the BBC, which also says 4 of its journalists were hurt. Several embassies also saying their employees were injured. President Trump blasting comedian Kathy Griffin for appearing in a video holding what looks